Hi everybody, this is Kara from Raevynn Yoga. This is going to be my first video in a series of videos where we're talking about variations on poses, and not just what some variations are, but how you can work with your body to find variations for poses. Because what you're going to find is over time your body is going to change naturally. All of our bodies do. And a variation that works for you today might not work for you in 6 months. The pose we're going to do today and look at today is Balasana, which is more commonly known as child's pose. This is a pose that can feel really, really wonderful for some people. And almost they get to a point that they can't fathom why it wouldn't feel good for everybody. But in fact, it doesn't feel great for everybody for a lot of different reasons. So first thing we're going to do is examine some ways to make it feel a little more comfortable. But then for those of you who really love child's pose and might like to challenge your child's pose a little bit, I'm going to give a couple variations for that as well. So to begin with, let's just look at what the basic form of child's pose is. So, child's pose, your knees are on your mat. Generally speaking, the flats of the tops of your feet are also pressed onto the mat. You lean forward over your legs and take your arms out long in front. Now, you will see in that variation, I don't get particularly low to the ground. It's because I'm kind of abundant through the middle, and this is blocking my ability to fold. So the very first variation I'm going to give you is to simply take your knees about as wide apart as your mat. You can see my knees a little bit off the mat, but you want to go, as wide as feels comfortable in your body. At that point, you're just going to take your fold forward again, stretch out, and find your way all the way down to the mat. Now, I happen to find that extremely comfortable. But it's okay if you don't. For some people, it can feel quite claustrophobic to be that far down onto the mat. So, one of the first ways to mitigate that claustrophobia is to come up onto your elbows. So you don't need any props for doing it this way or anything like that. You immediately create some space simply by coming to your elbows. Now, you can then stack your fists and lower your head. You still have some space, but you don't have to do so much work to hold your head up. Now, there's a couple other ways to do that. Take a block. So instead of using your hands to create the space, you can come down a little more on your arms and use the block under your head. The next possibility, if you have a bolster, and bolsters are wonderful and they come in a variety of sizes and shapes. I have two here right now. This long one and this smaller one. Now they will both work. You just have to look at your placement a little differently. The long bolster can come up right against your body. And then you simply fold over. Now, because this is fabric here, you're not necessarily going to want to go face down. So you can just lay a cheek on the bolster. Arms can go out further along if that feels good, or hang back here. If you have one of this style of bolster, you can use this. You could also use a round meditation cushion. And you can use this in place of the block, going across the mat and just using your forehead. Or you can have it sort of so your chest will come down on it. Now, here, because your forehead is going off the bolster, you might want to go back to that stacked fist. This time is a stool. I'm also going to show you with a chair. So, you're going to want to get seated in a comfortable position in front of your chair or your stool. Okay? You might even want to put something like a blanket or even a little bolster or block, under your hips. Just to give a little extra height, and it'll also help with your posture and tipping your body just a little more forward. Then you simply come down onto the stool, onto the chair, whatever you have. You can cross your arms completely, or just sort of use your hands. It's sort of whatever works in your body, what feels good. The next version I'm going to show you, we're actually going to use a chair and the bench. So for this variation, I have the bench I'm seated on, that this could also be a chair, the chair, and a bolster. The thing with the bolster is if you don't have one, you can take a fairly sturdy blanket, or even a couple of fairly sturdy blankets, and roll them. That will create the shape of a bolster. So once you get yourself here, you basically just hug your bolster and lay forward. And this is very comfortable, at least for me. And you can honestly also use a more sturdy pillow. You want to get some support out of it. So you need something that's going to give you at least a little support. That's why bolsters are really good for this. But you can play with it and find something that works for you. I'm going to show you one more seated variation. This requires one chair and a bolster. You're going to want to get your bum a little bit forward on the chair. You don't want to be right against the back. Take your legs as wide as feels comfortable, and then lean forward onto your bolster. Now, let's be honest, this is still a pillow, so it's going to be a little squishy. So you don't want to put a ton of weight in there. But you can also play with the positioning of the bolster, so the place you get the most support. So for me, that one's not the best option, but just because it doesn't work, it's super awesome for me, doesn't mean it won't for you, so you can give it a try. Now we're going to come into just a couple little arm variations for those of you who are looking for a little more challenge out of your child's pose. So I'm going to take my knees wide again. Arms are going to start by coming out long in front. And I'm going to get my head comfortably on my mat. And then I transition my hands into prayer position over my head. If you want to get really into your shoulders, you can even, and I'm going to go with my slightly lower blocks, take blocks down and work that same position with your elbows on your blocks. The next arm variation, and this is another one that doesn't actually work great in my body, but that's okay. I'm going to show you anyway, and I need to take my glasses off to show you. So knees are as wide as my mat. I lower myself down, and then hands come back long. Palms are facing up. I find this particular version not super awesome, but I know there are people who really enjoy it, and that's great, because remember, all of our bodies are a little different. The last variation I want to show you that might add a little bit of challenge. You could do this variation with a block. You could do this variation with a bolster. You could also do it with nothing, and nothing is actually going to be the most active version of this. So you're going to take whatever prop you've got and put it fairly close to your body across your mat. So when you lay over, and I've actually got to rotate that a little lower, it's going to force is a bad word, but it's going to encourage a lift in the low belly and a curl in the spine. Now, you may have to play with the placement here, but you're going to find a spot where you can feel that arching in your low back. You can feel the low belly pulling up, and that's the spot you want. If you want to do this without a prop, you're going to have to use your own muscles to create that sensation. So you need to pull in through the abdominals and the low belly and create that arch in your spine. Now, you can do that before you go down, like I just did, and then come forward and try to hold it. More often than not, I come all the way down and then create that motion. This is the most active version of a child's pose of Balasana. Here's the thing. All of these are wonderful, perfect, amazing expressions of the pose. None of them are right, none of them are wrong. So experiment. Try different versions. Even if you really love, you know exactly what child's pose you love to do and feels good, sometimes it's fun to mix it up and try a different variation. And see if you find something new. A new variation that you love maybe as much or maybe even more. And if you find child's pose really challenging, try different variations. And that's the first trick on figuring out each and every yoga pose for your body. Try different things. Now, of course, you may not know what things to try, and that's why I'm going to do this series of videos to give you some starting spots. But the most important part is to not be attached to this is the right form of the pose. We need to move away from the idea that we are forcing the body to try to look a specific way in a pose. Instead, the goal is to find the pose in the body. And that's in the body you have right now. Not the body you had 3 months ago, not the body you're going to have 3 years from now, but finding the variation of the pose that works in your body right now. And that may change 3 times in an hour. Or that may not change for months, and it's okay. I really want to thank you for joining me today. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I hope this pose that honestly probably seemed really simple, whether you liked it or not, seemed simple to you, you realize that there's a lot of room for exploration and discovery and variation. Thank you so much. Be well, take good care of yourself, and I'll see you again next.